Now let's take a look at how we can do a hamstring stretch. So you're going to scoot to the edge of your seat and you're going to prop your heel on the ground. This leg should be as straight as you can go. You want to keep your trunk nice and tall, and then you're going to tilt forward until you like the amount of stretch that you have through the back of the leg. Once you're there, you hold for 20 to 30 seconds, and then we're going to switch sides. As with all stretching, I prefer 3 times 20 to 30 second holds per round, and to improve the flexibility the fastest, you're going to perform that 3 to 5 times per day. So now let's take a look at a thigh stretch or a quadricep stretch. So most people know of the classic flamingo. Ideally, your goal is to have both thighs parallel as you do this to stretch out the front of the thigh. If this is too aggressive, you can just set your foot on a chair, a couch, a table, whatever the stretch intensity you need. Find a surface that will just support your leg. Again, when we're stretching, I'm trying to loosen things up, so I don't want it to be about balance. Try not to combine your stretches with your balance exercises, so that way you can actually feel like you can let go. All stretches hold for 20 to 30 seconds to actually change the flexibility of the muscle. Perform 3 repetitions per set, and ideally perform multiple rounds throughout the day to maximize that benefit. So now let's take a look at a piriformis stretch. As with all of the exercises that I'm doing on the mat, you can easily do this on your bed instead if it's not safe for you to get up and down from the floor. So I'm going to lie down on my back. My knees are going to be bent about 9 degrees. Feet and knees are shoulder width apart. I'm going to put my right ankle onto my left thigh, and I'm going to hug my right knee towards my left shoulder with the intention of trying to get a stretch in my right butt cheek. And then I'm going to hold that for 20 to 30 seconds to get a nice release of any tightness. And then I'm going to switch and do the other side. As with all stretches, I recommend doing 3 times 20 to 30 second holds per round, and ideally you do multiple rounds per day. When it comes to things like hip arthritis and hip impingement, it's really important that you make sure you feel this stretch in the buttock and you are not feeling a sharp pinching pain in the front of the hip. If you are getting a sharp pinching pain in the front of the hip, do not push through that. That is compression of the joint, and it is irritating. It's not good for you. If you feel dominantly a buttock stretch and a little bit of tightness through the front of the hip, that is absolutely fine to work through, but just avoid any sharp pains in the front of the hip. So now let's look at foam rolling for the upper back and the shoulder. So you're going to put the roller so it's perpendicular to your body. And I usually tell people to have knees bent, feet flat on the floor. And then you can do extension over the roller to work on your thoracic spine stiffness. And then if you want to be a little bit more aggressive, you can lift your bottom and can roll up and down on your upper back only. When it comes to this one, this is not a good recommendation for anybody who has osteopenia or osteoporosis. Typically, if you're older than 60, I'm going to very strongly consider not recommending this to you, just depending on how good your overall health, spinal health is likely to be. So be cautious with this one. Also, if you have difficulty getting up and down from the floor, then this is also not a great exercise for you, because in order for this to be effective, it needs to be done on the floor. So that's for thoracic spine extension and mobilization. And then you can also do some great chest postural stretches by having the roller parallel to your spine. The roller is long enough for most people that both their butt and their head can be supported. I'll usually call level 1 resting with the palms on your belly. Level 2 is resting with your palms facing towards the ceiling, but ideally completely relaxed and able to reach the ground. Level 3 is making like a capital letter T. And then level 4 is just up a little bit higher here. Not all people can get this high. 90 degrees is my goal for most people. People with extra flexibility from gymnastics or swimming can probably go higher, but it's not considered normal or even very healthy. If you have overly flexible shoulders, I'll actually tell you not to go that far. If you are doing this and you suffer from something like rotator cuff irritation or impingement and you feel like this is you, don't stress. That's somewhat normal for the condition, and we just want to work on loosening up that flexibility over time. So again, as with some of the other foam roller ones, this is kind of, and as much as you like, I'll usually say more like, oh, spend 2 to 5 minutes working on that, and if you can work on that multiple times a day to work on your flexibility throughout the day, that is ideal. Now we're going to look at how you can stretch out the muscles in the neck that get tight. So usually the biggest culprit is the upper trapezius. It's that muscle that everybody says they carry their stress in. And the best way to stretch that is to just perfectly side bend it to one side. So I'm going to bring my left ear towards my shoulder. And depending on how strong the stretch is, I can leave it there if that's already a mild to medium stretch. If I wish the stretch was more intense, I can put the weight of my hand on top of my head, and I can sit on the same side hand to increase the intensity of the stretch. I like to emphasize that you're not pulling with this hand. You're just setting the weight of the hand on top of the head to increase the intensity of the stretch. As with all stretches, holding for 20 to 30 seconds, ideally doing 3 rounds, and you perform 3 to 5 times per day to maximally increase the flexibility of the muscle. So that's the upper trap. The upper trap has a sister muscle called the levator scap. I lovingly call this the look at the armpit stretch. So if I'm trying to stretch out that right side, I'm going to look down at my left armpit, and that's going to, instead of getting the stretch along the side of the neck, it's going to shift it a little bit more posterior. And again, if I don't like that intensity, I wish it was a little bit more, I can set the weight of my hand on top of my head and sit on my opposite hand to increase the intensity of the stretch. Again, holding 20 to 30 seconds, performing 3 stretches on each side, and ideally performing multiple rounds per day to improve the flexibility the fastest.